I guess birth.
Okay.
Yeah, birth and politics. Weirdly, that's new. The politics thing is new.
The politics thing is kind of new,
Since
right?
COVID.
Since COVID, what
Yeah.
made you want to get involved? I usually introduce my guests and all this stuff, but like whatever, we'll just keep rolling.
Yeah.
All right. What?
I lived in LA during COVID.
Oh wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're a California girl,
Yeah.
and you moved to New Braunfels after COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
So you lived in LA during COVID. Let's
Yeah.
talk
Here we
about
are.
that. All right.
Yeah. That was insane. Yeah. So I lived in LA. I mean, I'm from there. I've lived my entire life in Southern California, and I never really paid any attention to local politics whatsoever. Like macro politics a little bit, but not really to the point where I like questioned anything at all. Like
Really?
at all.
So you didn't know what was going on.
No idea. Well, once the pandemic happened, we did. Because I had started to get more into politics slightly before the pandemic, but that's when I started speaking up, is when the pandemic hit. I was like, basically like my red pill or like my awakening, whatever, was when Trump won in 2016. And that's when I started to like ask a shitload of questions and get like curious about politics, like really curious, not just like, oh, what does Hillary Clinton want to do? You know? And then I started being outspoken online once the pandemic hit.
That's kind of what happened too. I
Yeah.
mean, I watched a few Alex Jones movies. I seen some documentaries. I kind of knew about the new. I knew about the New World Order. I knew about Bill Gates and the WHO and
Sure.
All of these nefarious agendas that these the cast of characters who regularly go to Davos every year.
Right.
And I also found it a little bit odd that a virus happened to conveniently come about during an election year and like 3 months after Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, and then all of his friends were trying to give us public health advice.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we were like very immediately we're like, this is not real. This is a total scam. Like immediately as soon as the lockdown happened, we're like, this is not good.
Yeah, I mean, right when I saw that they were doing these hardcore lockdowns, right, it kind of smelled like bullshit.
Yeah.
But I also didn't think that like COVID wasn't real. I was just kind of
yeah.
I was like, okay, there is a virus and we should be
For
more
sure.
careful. Like when the news of this virus, I remember back in like February, early March, they were talking about this. I wouldn't go into bars. You know what I mean?
Okay,
like
yeah.
when I was giving pedicab rides,
Yeah.
I wouldn't go into the bar after I drop people off or go places to eat. Like I'd be like a little bit more careful about where I would go to use the bathroom.
Sure.
And stuff like that. Or I would probably tell people, hey man, like I know this is not conducive to me making money, but maybe you should like cut back on the partying and go work out and like not be in areas with like 10,000 people.
Yeah, people
side by
got pissed
side
at me for saying stuff like that too.
next to each other. Maybe that's not a good idea. But then when they started issuing lockdowns and doing stuff like that, while the entire stock market was crashing, I kind of knew like this is just a way for people who are really rich that are flush with cash to consolidate wealth. Like that's what I was thinking. And then, I was also like a pretty big Bernie supporter.
Oh.
And I was like following more of the Democrat. I was following the Democratic primary a lot. Mm-hmm. And I saw what happened to what they did to Sanders in 2020, how they kind of stole it from him. If you paid attention, they stole it from him. And then the hardcore left-wing progressives who were really mad about everything being stolen from Bernie immediately just like forgot about their distrust for the establishment, and just blindly became they then became the most obedient soldiers for that same establishment. And that really like, I'm not gonna say it's a red pill because I kind of like already knew a lot of this stuff, but it really made me like not want to associate with that ideology or those people ever again.
Oh yeah. Once I started, for me, like my like awakening to like how insane the Democratic Party was actually paying attention to local politics in LA, because the crime and drugs and homelessness has always been a problem there. But like in 2018, a couple of bills passed that just made it go through the roof, and then the pandemic made it go
Even more through the roof.
explode. And
Yeah.
like there was no actual management in any way, shape, or form. It was just like enabling.
Yes, and then if you criticized any of this, they just labeled you a Trump supporter and didn't even want to listen to an ability to kind of mitigate this issue. In Austin, they like made it so that the homeless were allowed to camp wherever they wanted.
Yes.
And in the beginning, I didn't think that was like a terrible idea because I saw like 10 cops surrounding one crackhead, and I felt like it was a little bit harsh the way the homeless were being treated by
For sure.
APD. And so,
For sure.
At first I'm like, well, maybe we should do something to fix this. But then all of a sudden you saw a swath of homeless people. Now all of a sudden you're like, they're asking you to pay for this without your choice. And so all of a sudden now I'm coming up with ideas like, well, maybe we shouldn't be forced to pay for this, and maybe they shouldn't be allowed to camp wherever they want. They should be specific areas.
There's
or
a difference
if,
between compassion and enabling.
Yes.
Big difference.
And when I tried to bring stuff like that up, then it became like, oh, you're anti-homeless, you're this and that, and then
you're
like,
racist.
Yeah. And so the more you start hearing stuff like that, the more you're like, well, you know what? It's clear that there's no reasoning with these kinds of people. May as well advocate for the complete opposite of what they want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess that's how I kind of like gained a lot of followers. I wasn't even trying to. I was just pissed, and I wasn't working, and I was just home, and no one in my life, literally no one in my life except for my husband, thank God, like saw it. And then finally like a couple friends came to me like once I was posting online about the COVID stuff and the homelessness stuff. And they were just like, yeah, we feel the same. But like everyone else was just calling me names and saying terrible things to me, like friends and family.
My sister still doesn't really talk to me anymore because of all this stuff.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's crazy. So yeah, I just accidentally got kind of a following because of politics and then birth stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all pretty insane. And then you had riots. And all of a sudden it was okay to go ride in the street and you don't have to worry about getting a virus. And I'm like, wait a minute, how are you guys even like pretending to go along with this anymore? Like, you're not operating. I used to think that like the progressive like Bernie wing of the Democratic Party was the only wing that I like trusted to be in good faith because I felt like. Yeah. And then after that, I'm just like, no, you guys are actually the biggest cheerleaders for the establishment that you claim to hate.
Yes. Yeah. It was so insane. And I was just like, okay, we don't belong here anymore. My husband is born and raised in LA. I mean, I've lived there my entire life. I wasn't born there, but since I was 1.5,
Okay, so where did you move from? Like in
New York.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but like I wasn't raised there. I was raised in LA, and we were just like, whoa. People think LA is some like mecca of wellness, or at least it used to have that perception. All the yogis go there, like. That's where people go to Muscle Beach and they get fit and healthy, and Hollywood, and like everyone's skinny and blah, blah, blah. No. Could not be further from the truth. It is just totally just everyone falls in line. No one questions anything about medicine. I mean, some people do. By and large, most people do not. And then we were just like, and then the pandemic was like really eye-opening, like how few people really were willing to not only question the narrative, but say anything. Hardly anyone.
Crazy. Did people like yell at you because you didn't have your mask on outside?
Yes.
I never got that in Austin.
I rarely got it because I was pregnant, and no one really gets mad at pregnant ladies.
Yes. Okay.
Which is great. But my husband got yelled at for sure.
But for being out like in the park without a mask on?
Literally walking around our block and no one's outside. Someone's across the street on the sidewalk on the walk across the street, and they're like, "No mask." My husband's like, "Bro, we are 60 feet apart from each other.
I'm outside. What are you?"
And we're outside. It was so crazy. Yeah.
Well, and then those same people are the types of people that think abortion should be in the Constitution and feel like we're becoming fascist because now you can't kill your kid, which is even more insane.
It is way more insane. Yes. Yeah. No, I grew up like in a pro-choice.
I used to be pretty pro-choice. I think it's still like, I don't even know where I stand on this issue, but
cool.
I mean,
Let's talk about it.
We should talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of leaning more towards the opposite of that. And it's also not because of, but rather in spite of GOP messaging.
What's the GOP messaging you're getting about abortion?
I feel like they just like they proselytize and throw their religion on their sleeves and then call you a baby killer if you like disagree with them.
Oh. It's more of a Christian thing for the GOP.
Yeah.
When it comes to abortion. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's annoying.
I don't like that. Nobody likes being talked at or preached at, and I think that the way that the GOP discusses an issue like this kind of turns people off and makes people become more communist, for lack of a better word.
I don't I understand the Christian messaging. I'm not a Christian.
I'm Jewish, like, yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah,
My dad's Jewish,
yeah.
so my mom's Catholic. So we were raised Catholic, but like not really.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Christian messaging is it's just a huge turnoff for half the country, if not more.
It's a turn for everybody. It's gross.
I don't disagree with that. I'm saying it's not a turnoff for the Christians.
Well, yeah, I guess so, but it's also bullshit with the way they message it, because it's like, well, everyone's pro-life until you get the wrong girl pregnant.
Exactly.
And I think that there should be a better way to address this, and a lot of look. I was of the belief that, you should be consistent with your thought process. Like,
sure.
Nobody should force you to get a vaccine. And
For
so,
sure.
and like, since no one should force you to do it no one should force you to do something with your body that you're not comfortable with or that you're not ready to do. So I figured, like, okay, well, under that logic, well, if you're not, like, since no one should force you to get a vaccine, nobody should, like, stop you from having an abortion, because at face value, it does kind of make sense. Right?
Yeah, if you don't think that there's not another human involved.
Yeah, if you don't think that there's not another human involved in there. But the other problem, too, is that, like, no one's really offering alternatives to having there's nobody's offering, like, plausible alternatives to having abortions, which is what the actual problem is. Like, it costs $20,000 to have a kid. Or something like that. Doesn't it cost like an insane amount of money to give birth at like a hospital? Like your
hospital bill?
Yeah.
It can cost up to like $30 if you have a C-section with a ton of interventions, and if your insurance doesn't cover it, yeah, it can be astronomical.
Yeah, and then also, like, I said this to you on Instagram, like, our currency's been devaluing at a very rapid pace, especially since 1970. Well, since 1913, but especially since 1971 when we went off the gold standard. And so, like, the more you devalue the currency, the harder it becomes for working and middle class people to even have or raise a family.
Sure.
And then these social conservative pro-life Christians have absolutely no sympathy for that whatsoever.
Well, I think the argument there is, so what? Because a perfect life isn't guaranteed. You could be rich and your parents give birth to you and everything's great, and then they file for bankruptcy 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
And you are homeless.
It's true.
So there's no perfect life guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed, right? So it's like, well, you're going to take away the opportunity for someone to flourish through shit, and you're judging someone's situation. That's the other thing. They think, well, I don't want someone to be born in terrible conditions. So that's terrible to you. Maybe that mother of 10 is perfectly happy in that little house and she loves her life. It's a judgment.
That is a judgment. I guess
that's what Christians are terrible at.
Conveying the message, yeah.
Exactly. They're not good at conveying that message. Some are, but to me, I'm just like, I get what they're saying, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah, but the problem is if you get it and a lot of people don't, then it's bad communication.
For sure.
And, you can't, I don't think you could legislate your way into this. I think this is about making people voluntarily choose to go about life differently, right? And I think 100%. That one of the things that, like, instead of, I think that the way the Supreme Court, did overturn Roe was actually kind of a disaster.
The way that it went down?
Yeah, because it went down, in an election year. And if you look at how the Democratic Party's been run, they're an actual existential threat to this country.
Yeah.
And all that they did was just allow more Democrats to get into office, both in Congress. Like, we didn't have a red wave probably because of that. And then you got Joe Biden trying to, like, hire 87,000 IRS agents so more of your money can go to Ukraine to fund Hunter Biden's crack habit.
I think regardless of...
You know what I mean? And then you're also getting such blowback from the court decision that, like, places like Minnesota or Pennsylvania or even like Michigan have gotten so lib.
Yeah.
That
true.
It's going to make it that much harder for anybody conservative to win in those states, and we have a really big presidential election coming up now. And B, they're going to just, like, push back even more on Roe v. Wade and just make it so that you can go have an abortion up until birth, if not afterwards. And so I didn't even feel like that legislation even actually saved kids the way it's supposed to.
I think it will. Does
that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, I get it. I think pandemonium happened, but I think in the long run, it's better. I do think overturning Roe v. Wade was the right move, regardless of how it went down. Because I agree with you, it was messy and it didn't make it better for conservatives in the moment.
They could have done it in 23. They could have done it in 2025. Like they could have done this a little bit at a slightly different time frame.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little bit fuzzy on what went down to make that even get overturned. I can't really remember exactly, but
somebody leaked something or something like that. And then
okay.
Yeah. There's also the fact that, like, you know, the average person who is pro-choice, right? Is probably a little bit younger, right?
Yes.
B, probably not in the best financial situation.
Doesn't have kids.
Yeah, probably not a strong like religious foundation, right? And you know, D, probably never saw like what an actual abortion looks like.
Never.
What does that look like?
What does an abortion look like? Oh, well, it depends on where you're at in pregnancy. So most abortions do occur in the first trimester, and I should say that I don't know the exact statistics, but I know that by and large most abortions, or early second trimester, and that can look like a couple different. Like, so if you're early, like before 10 weeks, you can like just take a pill, and then it's kind of just like bleeding. And
what about the baby though? How does
it just comes out?
Does it like what kind of pain is the baby in the first trimester?
I don't know. I actually don't know what the baby experiences with the pill abortion method. But it's not like a dismembering situation because usually they're small enough where they can just
like dissolve.
No, they just like the cervix will open up. They give you medication to like kill the baby, and then they give you medication to open the cervix. And it's like it's mostly just like blood clots. That's kind of what it's like. It's not like a bony human yet. I'm not saying first trimester babies aren't human because they are, but it's not like solid, super solid yet. It's super tiny, like super duper tiny. Second trimester abortions, like past 15 weeks, are going to be a little bit more complicated because the baby's a lot bigger. Where the mother is usually very much showing, has a full-on belly, and the baby, like I'm 18 weeks almost right now. And
I noticed.
Yeah. And the baby's like the size of a, what was the thing in my app? Like a guinea pig.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's like that big. That doesn't just fall out. You have to get it out. And to surgically remove it because abortions are not inducing labor. So say a woman sadly loses her baby in utero. Baby dies in utero. This happens.
Okay.
Stillborn birth, right? They would go to the hospital and either do a C-section or induce labor. And where the woman's cervix would dilate fully, they should deliver a baby, or they do a C-section. Abortion, they're not doing labor. They want to kill the baby. That's it. They don't want the woman to experience labor. I mean, the woman doesn't want to experience labor. That's arguably why one of the reasons why she's having this is because she doesn't want to go through labor, doesn't want to have a baby type of thing, right? So they like kill the baby with a lethal injection if the baby's big, and they pull it out limb by limb. They literally dismember it.
And is that in the third trimester? I'm assuming it's the same thing.
Same
right?
thing, yeah.
Okay.
And they get like they have this like clamp that's like tongs, like medical tongs. They go in, fish around for something, get a hold on something, rip it out. It's horrific.
Yeah, so I always thought that they should show in like health class what something like that looks like.
Absolutely.
You know, and not be preachy, not call anybody names, not saying anything. Hey guys, you know, you're young. This is gonna happen. You're gonna be active. This is, you know, like there is a chance that whatever you're doing could potentially result in pregnancy, and this is a human life that you guys are dealing with. And we want to show you guys what it looks like if you're not ready to have a kid. What that process of not having that kid while that kid's inside you will look like. I feel like that would have been that's probably a better approach long term than just
100%.
You know, crucifying and being really preachy at people.
Along with that, speaking of health class, I think our entire world would change if both men and women got proper cycle education so that women know when they can and can't get pregnant within their cycles. You're like, what?
Wait, what? Is that actually a thing?
That is absolutely. Do you think women can get pregnant at any time?
I don't know. You're the expert. I'm asking you.
See, this is the problem. No one knows. And I'm not saying that's like a you problem. That's a societal problem. Like, most people do not know when you can get pregnant / cannot get pregnant in your cycle. And that's why we just have tons of unwanted pregnancies. This is no one has any idea what's happening in their bodies. We have such a severe disconnect, so severe that we will kill our own human baby because we're just like, whatever, like get it out of there. We're so disconnected from our reproductive abilities, our reproductive rights, our reproductive function, that we have absolutely no idea that it's really fucking easy to prevent pregnancy / get pregnant, assuming your body's working right. No, if you know your cycle.
Well, so how do you learn that?
It's super easy. So once you start your period, you start tracking your cycle, and there's many different resources on the internet out there.
What's a good resource to use?
Google fertility awareness method, FAM, fertility awareness method. There's tons of Instagram accounts. You could follow my friend, the period guru. But there's tons of education about fertility awareness. So basically, a woman ovulates for 1 day in their cycle. Okay. So like most women ovulate between day 12 and day 17. You track your cycle, and there's different things you can do to basically confirm ovulation. But the egg lives for 12 to 24 hours. That's it. You have 12 to 24 hours when the egg is released to get pregnant. Now, sperm can live up to 5 days. So you really have a window of about 6 days. So like if you have sex on day 10 of your cycle, but you don't ovulate till day 14, the sperm could live inside of you until day 14. You could still get pregnant even. So your fertile window, you have to learn what your fertile window is. And this is like complicated sounding, but it's actually very simple once you get in the habit of tracking your cycle. So like, I'll never go on birth control again, ever. I was on birth control for like 1.5 years. It was horrible. I also think that is an insanely huge problem with abortion culture, is being on women just being fed birth control like candy. That's another thing we can get into. But once you learn your cycle, like I said, I'll never go on birth control again, but I know how to chart my cycle so accurately that like I will never have an unwanted pregnancy, most likely.
So here's what I think, right? There's all this like sexualization of kids and whatnot in the school, right? And they talk about, well, it's good. We want to have a more progressive attitude towards the stuff, and teach people that about consent, and make it so that people have healthier sex lives, right?
Yeah.
Or healthier boy-girl, boy-boy relationships, or whatever, right? Like, which is a good thing, I think.
For sure.
I think that's a good thing to understand how to have healthy to do that, right? Because obviously, like the
age appropriately, for sure.
Puritanical abstinence only stuff didn't work.
I think starting in high school, like that's super important.
Yeah. So what I'm saying though is that just from that progressive like sexual health model, they should be that what you just mentioned should be a fixture in a sex ed curriculum.
1,000%. I am actually shocked that I talked to a woman today, and she's like, "Okay, so how do I chart?" I said, "Okay, so like." Chart day 1 of your cycle. She's like, what's that? I was like, the first day of your period?
Do you think if you ran for school board, if you were to like run for school board in New Braunfels and this was a part of your campaign, do you think it would be as successful?
In the public school system, probably.
Do you think it would be well received? Like as if you were a school board candidate in New Braunfels, do you think what we just talked about would be well received in New Braunfels?
It's hard to, I don't really know. We don't do school, so I don't know.
Yeah, you don't do school because they don't teach this type of stuff. They teach people about pronouns and fake racism and nothing applicable to real life. So, but what you're talking about is applicable to real life. Yeah. So I feel as though maybe this type of stuff would get more people to, renew their faith in
I would
public
hope
school.
so. But the thing about charting your cycle is a couple of things. It creates an absolute necessity for personal responsibility, which libs hate. Right.
But what about all the hardcore Christian conservatives that are gonna like? I feel like
they all go to Christian school. They don't go to public school.
You don't think like some of the evangelical types would get like annoyed by it? Like would have something to say about that? Like you shouldn't talk about this stuff at all.
I don't know. I feel like
I used to think that, but I'm kind of not. I don't know if that's really. I don't really think that as much anymore.
I don't know if like they're super opposed to biology. Like I feel that is literally just biology.
Okay.
Sperm and the egg, right? You learn about that in public school.
Yeah.
So I mean, it creates an absolute necessity for personal responsibility. And then like that's what libs hate, especially when it comes to abortion too, because it puts all of the responsibility on the woman, right?
Well, yeah. Well, the responsibility should be put on the woman because you're the one who gives birth.
I 100% agree.
That's
Libs don't think that though, because you should just be able to kill your baby.
Maybe, but I think that like running a campaign like that and addressing that could really also turn the whole abortion narrative on its head in a way. It's
very empowering if you think about it.
Yeah. I think that like if this became the message, right, versus just using the traditional conservative talking points, I think that would go a much farther way to changing the narrative on abortion. Because if you did it like a national poll right now, I guarantee, like, if the country had to vote on abortion, right, and it was a multiple choice question, they would probably vote for like it to be legal first trimester.
Yes.
You know,
by and large,
second trimester probably not.
Yeah.
Maybe 50-50.
Yeah.
Third trimester no, but they would definitely vote to make it legal for the first trimester.
Yes.
The whole country, right? But that, you know, with more education or with more knowledge about how to prevent a pregnancy in a way that doesn't involve that at all, that might, you know, that might change as well.
And I 100% agree. I think it would change because a lot of women would understand that, like, I mean, if birth control wasn't available, number one, we'd have a much better society because women would have to understand their cycles and we wouldn't be poisoned by birth control.
Can you tell me how birth control is poison?
It's a class 1. Is that what it's called? Carcinogen. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. It's terrible for you. It depletes all of our essential like nutrients, like every like vitamin, essential nutrient, mineral that we need to have healthy bodies, minds, and cycles is depleted when you're on birth control.
No shit.
Yeah, it's really fucking bad for you. It's like, I mean, and it causes depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety.
It does a lot of. It does.
It's literally so horrible. But it's the only thing that women tend to rely on because we were never educated on how to chart our cycles. And so women get off birth control because maybe they're married and they're ready to start a family and they have no idea how to do it. Like, we don't know how to we're so disconnected.
Yeah, and it could also have an impact on your ability to reproduce.
Absolutely.
Potentially. And I also heard stories that women who are on birth control for like prolonged periods of time all of a sudden become no longer attracted to their partners after they get off of birth control.
Correct. Yes, that's a thing too. Because it just changes your sense of like smell really to like pheromones. And it changes your attraction to people. Because you're attracted to people's smells. Like, that's a very primal thing that humans have. So going back to Roe v. Wade, though, like, this is why I think Roe v. Wade is ultimately, the overturn is a really, really, really good thing. Because it gives power back to the state, which is good. I like that. But it also, in states like Texas, where it is now illegal, if you hear a baby's heartbeat, that scares women, as it should. You should know your cycle so you can absolutely know when to not have sex.
Yeah. Or when to put a condom on or something.
Put a fucking condom on. Like, dude, even moms who are postpartum, you know, after you have a baby, your cycle doesn't return for however long. Everybody's different. Some women's cycle comes back at 4 months postpartum. Sometimes it takes 18 months. You just don't know. And you can always get pregnant before you get your period because you ovulate before you get your period. I'm doing a science lecture right now.
No, this is interesting. I'm glad.
So,
I trust receiving scientific advice from you a lot more than I do from Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci.
literally basic biology. It's like so basic. Like, it's so basic. But you can get pregnant before you get your period. So women ask me, like, what should I do? I don't want to go back on birth control because I felt like shit on birth control, but I don't want to get pregnant right after having a baby. It's like, do you forget that condoms exist? It's like people completely forget.
With my girlfriend, right? Soon to be wife, we probably should have been married by now, you know. But like, I don't want to use a condom after we have, you know.
Yeah, well, fuck you. Get over it. Seriously.
Or just have more kids,
or just have more
kids and create more life. And
you're like,
you know.
I was like, listen, I am 3 months postpartum. There's a 0% chance I want a baby right now. Zero. Yeah. I want 0 babies in my body right now. If you want to have sex, we're wearing a condom. It's that or nothing. If your man says no, you gotta get a new man.
No, I understand. I get that. I understand. I didn't know that though. I thought that after you have the kid, you're like kind of.
You're definitely not infertile.
No? You have
No.
like a window? There's no window? You're just...
There's 0 window. There is, like, it's complete unknown.
For how long is it unknown for?
It's different for everybody. Literally. So, I got my period back at 4 months with my son, and not till 10 and a half months with my daughter. It's just
and so
different.
in between those time from when you get pregnant versus you getting your period, you can just get pregnant any day of the week and it doesn't matter and nobody knows?
You just don't
You don't know.
Because if you haven't gotten your period, you don't know.
So then the education process of teaching women about their cycles really only applies until the first kid.
No.
Well,
Well,
yes, it only
but
applies
then
to-
once you get your period back, postpartum, your cycle's
back
pretty
to
much
normal.
regular.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and then you can track like normal.
Got you.
So it's
All
just
right.
a couple months of unknown. Suck it up. Wear a condom for
to
a
be
little
fair,
bit.
I feel like I don't know this, but from what I hear, I feel like most women kind of lose a little bit of their sex drive after giving birth.
Oh yeah.
So then that could also be nature telling you that like you're
Exactly.
just it's the postpartum. It's
Exactly.
part of that postpartum.
It's like a gentle time, and hopefully you have a really supportive husband who's like down to communicate with you about what's gonna work, for your intimacy, and you just freaking roll with it.
That's why you gotta actually have true genuine love, because true genuine love allows you to work through that stuff, whereas you just wanting someone to sleep with or
Boom.
being with someone
And-
for like the wrong reasons or status, it kind of
And
once
here
that
we go,
pregnancy happens,
like-
then it's then you really get a test of what's
and this brings
what's
us
going
back
down.
to
Yeah.
education with teenagers. Is like, we don't talk about finding a partner
Yeah.
when you're in high school. Like, you're like, don't fucking get pregnant, go to college, get a career. I was
Go $300,000 in the debt is good for you. Yeah.
like, no one told me to have foundational values and look for a partner who aligns with my values. Like, I had to figure that out on my own.
Well, no, because then you can't be a wage slave.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, no,
Exactly.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
then you're less likely to comply with the next vaccine mandates.
Exactly. So we have a bunch of abortions because we have sex culture and hookup culture. And then we just say, but it's okay because you can just kill your baby.
Yeah, and it also helps kind of destroy the nucleus of the American family, and then destroys personal sovereignty. And then when you have less personal sovereignty, the state becomes your family because you have no foundation and no guidelines, and no guidance. And then when the next crisis or egregious violation of your rights happen, instead of being unified to fight this, you fight your neighbor who speaks out.
Exactly.
And you're seeing this very clearly during COVID.
Oh, yeah. And so, I didn't like to speak out about abortion because I knew I would shame people who I knew.
Yeah, and that's
which
the thing,
is
so
never my intention.
And you don't want to shame people. That's the thing. Like, the way they communicate it's like,
yeah,
it's a communication of shaming, and that's what the problem is.
Major problem. Like, I have a friend who, she and I had a really good conversation about this, and she was like, ever since having a baby, like, my whole perception on this has changed, and it's like, fucking, it like rocks your world. I'm like, I know, like it really does. I never want to shame anyone who's had an abortion because I obviously get why they did.
I understand why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the reasons for wanting to have an abortion have never been greater now than they have been in the past.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I totally get it. It makes sense on one hand.
They passed Roe v. Wade 1 year after we went off the gold standard.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. You think that's a coincidence? That modern feminism and like making abortion legal happened almost immediately after we no longer had sound money, and then like within that same decade, no fault divorce became allowed, and it was a Republican governor by the name of Ronald Reagan, who conservatives love and look up to, which is totally bonkers because he's like one of the most unconservative people. If you actually like learn about what he's legislated, he's one of the most unconservative political leaders in the United States, and a lot of the stuff that he's done has actually caused the degeneracy that's shaping in front of us right now.
The Vaccine
Safety Act
and
the Fairness Doctrine got eliminated under Reagan. So now all the news channels are just sensationalized propaganda, and it's as a result of Reagan repealing the Fairness Doctrine.
Yeah. Modern feminism really really did a number on our country because we dishonored the mother.
Yeah.
That's really what it was.
I mean, it's great if you're like a good-looking guy with some charisma who just wants to get laid with no responsibilities, but
Yeah.
that's all that's really
For real.
what it is.
Yeah, like women voting and working, yeah, I'm down with that. Currently, I don't think had it.
I made a funny video about that at Texas. Did you see that one?
No,
Oh, I'll
but
show
I
you.
know.
I did a petition where I asked a bunch of girls at Texas State if they would like to sign a petition to abolish the 19th Amendment to put an end to women's suffrage. And, they were signing this shit left and right. And I'm just like, it's the cause of so many of the oppressive systems that we're witnessing today, which is kind of, it is kind of true because
It is kind of true.
It is kind of true. Like the value of our dollar has gone down by over 90%.
Yeah.
Which is true. We're about to go to war with Russia and Iran, which is also true because if single women, if single women between the ages of 18 and 40 years old weren't allowed to vote, we would have a different president and a
lot of
different
things
congressional makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
and we might not go to war. We might not be on the verge of going to war with Russia.
I'm more along the lines now of like business owners and property owners should be the ones who are allowed to vote, which would include women in our modern times. I'm more on board with that.
Or also willingness to serve in the military. Like if you decide, like if you
that's legit.
That could be it too, right? Like listen.
But I also don't like the military. Sorry.
Well, I understand that. I understand that, but it's like the willingness to get drafted, and that you can your voting rights determine on whether or not should be predetermined upon whether or not you are making yourself draft eligible to fight in the next in whatever war comes out for the next 4 years or something like that. It's got to be something like that,
If women never went to work, I'm not saying our world would be a better place. I'm genuinely not. Women have contributed immensely to society. However, what modern feminism did was dishonored the mother and dishonored the home. And now we have this shitstorm that we're in.
Yes, and the Rockefellers helped fund modern feminism.
Yeah.
Right. And another reason that this happened, I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit. We're gonna get so canceled. Nah, nobody cares. But another reason why they did this too is because they knew that the money that our monetary system was completely going to degrade itself, and as a result of the currency debasement that was going to be inevitable, you needed to tax another segment of the population. Yeah,
for sure.
And you also had to get used to people living in smaller quarters. You had to get used to people you had to get used to people sharing bills to live to have shittier living conditions, for lack of a better word. And, when you dismantle a nuclear family, that helps to mask the effects of inflation.
Yeah, I'm not...
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not... I know that not every woman, grows up wanting to be a mom. I know that. But I was one of those women. I grew up knowing I wanted to be a mom, knowing I wanted babies. And had that been encouraged from a young age, I would have loved that. I would have been so much happier not... going in the hamster wheel that I couldn't keep up with. I was school was not my thing. If we lived in a world where motherhood and taking care of the home was an honorable thing,
my girlfriend
I would be
happier,
super fucking chill with that.
I think my girlfriend
I would
be
love
happy.
that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I think a lot of women are at a point where they actually are happier with that. They actually would be. And I think one of the things that you got to do is you got to just make that cool again. And that's also
100%.
through communication and
Yeah.
And I think that the internet and Twitter and everything that's happening right now is actually heading us towards the right direction.
I do think so too. And that's why now I talk more about abortion, because I'm you say you are, I mean, even there are conservatives who are pro-choice, right? They exist. Conservatives have gotten abortion 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I was kind of one of those people in the beginning.
I think if we really started to honor the sanctity of life / decide, this is one thing I think conservatives do right, is they have decided when life begins, which is at conception, which is scientific fact. That's a fact.
Yeah. But then there's other things that you have to do to get the public on board.
Well,
which is lower the cost of figure out a way to lower the cost of childbirth. Encourage companies. Encourage
that's
the
an insurance issue.
Well, yes, which is what brings to the next point, which is you encourage the proliferation of companies like Crowd Health.
Yeah.
Because guaranteed, if you get it, if you're a Crowd Health member and you're giving birth, you pay $500, and the Crowd will fund the rest of your birth.
Yeah. My birth is covered by Crowd Health.
Yeah.
And we've only ever done health shares since having babies. It's incredible. Our births were paid by insurance in full. And home births are a lot less expensive than hospital births most of the time. We don't do hospital birth either.
Well, I think that my girlfriend's that's gonna be a tough sell for her.
She'll get there if she wants to. Once you learn about the benefits versus risks.
We should all get dinner or actually hang out one day and stuff, because I think it would be I think you'd be a good person for her
Hospitals is where people go to die.
to meet. Yeah, that is true. Or
Yeah.
and then you bring life into the world in a den of sickness. It just seems pretty backwards.
It's completely
to me.
bad. Yeah.
And there's also the concern.
Speaking of 1913, that's around the first year that birth was in the hospital.
No way.
Thanks to Rockefeller medicine.
What?
Yeah, for real.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But also, like, what do you do? Just if God forbid you have to go to a hospital and give birth, and they try to pump your kid full of a bunch of medication, how do you like say no to that? And like, what are like the legal pathways towards like refusing to do that without worrying about them trying to call CPS or something on your kids?
All right. There's an amazing doula. I'm a doula too, but
Okay.
she's a fucking amazing doula. Really online resource. Her Instagram is Sacred Birth Doula.
Okay. Does she live here?
I actually don't know where she lives. She's pretty incognito.
Right.
But she has a resource online called Rights Over My Body. And it's a PDF. I think it's pay what you can. And you bring that to the hospital with you. And it's like, obviously, read it thoroughly. Go through it. But I talk a lot about this in my birth education class, too. You simply say no. You say no. I do not consent. That is like most hospitals, at least here, most hospitals here are really cool with it. I haven't had really anybody get CPS called on them because they refuse vaccines or
There was
medication.
a pedicabber that I'm friends with who, him and his wife, his girlfriend, they had a kid and like they threatened. I mean, they threatened them when they refused. Although
A vaccine?
Yeah, although nothing came of the threat,
Yeah.
they still got.
They'll threaten it. Yeah. I've had multiple clients be threatened with CPS this year.
Yeah.
2 actually called to their fucking house. Insane. In Texas, yeah. So watch out. I would literally never step foot in a hospital unless I was dying if I was having a baby. Never. But you simply say no. And if for whatever reason they were threatening you, I would call the cops because I would have fun with it. I would call the cops and I would say, these people are holding me hostage. They're not letting me leave. I'm refusing a optional medication that I do not want to give my baby. They're holding me hostage here.
And it is optional. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I get that on film. I'm like, all right, we're gonna get this. We're filming this and recording this right now.
None of my
so,
clients do any vaccines at hospitals.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
Everything is optional. You just have to know that it's optional. Like, oh, we're going to do vitamin K. Like, and I will say, all the hospitals I've been to here in Texas are amazing when it comes to the consent forms. They are very clear about it. You either consent to it or you do not. It's not like if you say nothing, that means you do consent. That is not the case. Across the board, so far in Texas, my experience is they give you a paper, you either sign it or you do not sign it. And if you do not sign it, that means I do not consent.
Okay.
Which is awesome. Everyone here is like pretty down with parental choice. I've only had people be threatened with CPS on them when they want to leave the hospital before they're discharged. And usually what hospitals are doing in that case is they're just trying to milk your insurance for all they can get out of it.
But if you're using crowd help, they can't milk anything.
Exactly. They want you out of there. They're like, oh, you're paying cash? See ya. So
just be a crowd health customer. Who cares?
yeah, exactly.
Would crowd health cover my girlfriend's birth, or because I'm not?
She would have to be a member.
Got it. Well, so once she's pregnant, we'll just be like, hey, you're gonna be a crowd health
Before
customer.
she gets pregnant, she has to be a member. Like a month before. A month before you try and conceive, start trying to conceive, join Crowd Health.
Okay. Join crowd.
Minimum 1 month. You can't get pregnant and then join Crowd Health. They do have that rule.
Oh shit. So what if it's too late?
Join today.
That's
You
a
can
great.
use my link.
That's a great advertisement, actually.
But no, the insurance really fucks people in hospitals. Bad. And so anyway, so yeah, parental choice is becoming more and more of a thing, at least here in Texas, in my experience, which is good.
That's a good thing. That is a very good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, worst case, she still has insurance through her job, and
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world, and
No.
we still have rights and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not the
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's good to know. So you made a pretty interesting video
Yeah.
about this whole. There was a big whole mess about this lady who had to travel out of state to get
Uh-huh.
like. What exactly happened? And
Okay.
I want you to explain this to me like I wear a mask alone to drive my car.
Okay. So this woman, I believe her name is Kate Cox,
Yeah.
lives in Texas. I don't know where. Hopefully she can't hear me. She opted for genetic screens in pregnancy, which most women who are unaware that you have options do. I have declined all genetic screens in pregnancy because their screens they're not diagnostic. But what they do is they take a blood draw, they screen the mother's blood to see if there are any genetic abnormalities. Oftentimes they're extremely inaccurate because they're screening my blood, not my baby's. So it's pretty fishy, the accuracy of these tests. Anyway, her blood test came back positive for a condition called trisomy 18. Trisomy 18 most of the time, well, always gets a diagnosis of incompatible with life. So if your baby makes it, basically, they're going to die immediately after birth, is what the medical establishment tells women.
Okay. The medical establishment also tells us that men can get pregnant now, so it's kind of a little bit tough to take what they have to say at face value.
Exactly. So she gets the genetic screen, comes back positive for trisomy 18, but since it's just a screen, you need to do a little bit more testing to get a true diagnosis. And the test that she opted for is called an amniocentesis, and that is where they stick a needle in through the abdomen. It's extremely high risk and it's super invasive, and you basically get a sample of the amniotic fluid, which has baby's DNA in it, I guess. Or I guess it's like, it might be a blood. I don't know exactly what's in the amniotic fluid that is like genetically determining of the baby, because it's like water, but whatever, right? That's probably made me sound really dumb. I don't know exactly what they're sampling except for the amniotic fluid. I don't know what's in it to make it be diagnosable. Anyway, long story short, that is super high risk and super invasive, and she got a diagnosis of trisomy 18. Okay, so trisomy 18 is pretty, honestly, like, I would never want a child with trisomy 18. I wouldn't choose that. Let's just say I wouldn't choose that.
What does that happen if the child? What does that mean for the child if you get?
They're just medically dependent for their whole life.
Oh.
It's hard. They're like disabled, and both physically and mentally. I don't know what the mental capability of.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
So what could you do during your pregnancy or leading up to your pregnancy to like minimize that even from
It's a
happening?
genetic abnormality. So it's like
okay.
Down syndrome. Down syndrome is called trisomy 21.
Yeah, people with Down syndrome like lead awesome lives. Like they win powerlifting competitions.
Absolutely.
And they appear in movies. Like
Yeah.
if I had a kid with Down syndrome, I'd be like, all right, good. You're gonna be the best. You're gonna be the most.
100%.
You're gonna be the Michael Jordan of kids with Down syndrome.
Totally.
Like who cares? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right.
But trisomy 18, they have a medicalized life. Many people just give them the diagnosis of incompatible with life because it's almost like not worth the effort to try and save their life, which is fucked up and sad in my opinion.
Sounds like eugenics, but okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's the issue. That's actually the issue. Okay. So
is there also a chance, sorry if I'm interrupting, that like the diagnosis could just be wrong?
there is a chance that it could be wrong. I don't know I know that the genetic screens for the blood tests are pretty bad. Like
Okay.
the accuracy levels are pretty bad, but I don't know what the accuracy of an amnio is. I think it's much more accurate, but there is a small chance it could be wrong. Okay.
All right.
So with this diagnosis of incompatible with life, so her doctor told her she wanted to abort the baby because she wants a normal baby. She doesn't want a highly medicalized child.
Well, which is normal, which is
I get that.
yeah,
right.
that's
But
totally,
like,
okay.
yeah, I totally get that. Obviously, I'm not going to choose that.
Yeah.
For my life.
Okay.
Or my child's life. I wouldn't choose that. But I'm also
And she found this out like how far along was she?
21 weeks.
So that's like 7 months. Could she have like found that
It's
out
like 5
early?
months.
Could you have found that out earlier?
I don't know how early they can do amnios. I don't know if your belly has to be like big enough, and they're like, I don't know. So yeah, and basically the argument of her lawyers is that it is putting the mother's life at risk, which is absolutely fake news.
That doesn't put anybody's life at risk. It just that doesn't
at all. And their argument was because she's had 2 prior C-sections, if they induce labor or give her another C-section, it's risky for the mother. Sure, but it's not life-threatening in any way, shape, or form.
No, because if she didn't have that genetic thing done, that wouldn't have even been an argument. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true to say more often than not, but oftentimes babies diagnosed with trisomy 18 don't even make it. They're stillborn. So she's not even willing to like give the baby a fighting chance. She just doesn't want it.
Yeah.
She doesn't want a trisomy 18 baby.
Okay. And then they'll say, well, it's about being humane to the baby, but then you'll dismember it while it's in the...
The baby doesn't get any...
Any say, yeah, it doesn't seem very humane at all.
Well, and they can feel the lethal injection. The mom can't. The baby can.
Okay.
The baby can feel pain at that point. The baby can feel pain like as early as like 15 weeks. So it's really a question of humanity when it begins, which liberals can't decide.
A lot of people can't, yeah.
A lot of people can't decide. People who are smart and know science. The liberals love science until it's about abortion.
Yeah, sure, but continue with the
What?
Continue with the story.
Well, so she is leaving the state to get a second trimester abortion.
Well, she already did, didn't?
I guess so.
She already got it, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Texas Supreme Court said the mother's life is not at stake, and that is really the exception for the rule in Texas, and I believe rape and incest is also an exception here. And the mother's life was not at risk, so she left.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think rape and incest are probably fair exceptions.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with incest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Controversy.
mean, that's a little controversial. That's the rape one's a tough one though. That's a tough one
For a lot of people.
That's a tough one because it's like imagine being a mom and you conceive a child like that. Like that probably strains the way that kid gets.
Have you ever met someone born out of rape?
No.
I have. They're stoked. They're happy to be alive. They love their life. Most of them that I've met. You punish the baby for the father's wrongdoing.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
It's a touchy. It's a tough. That's a tough subject.
It's real tough.
That's a tough subject.
It's real tough.
That's a tough subject.
I'm on baby side in that case.
Yeah. Although to be fair, if something like that does happen, like there's still plan Bs and things that you could take before even having to get an abortion anyway.
For sure.
So
for
it
sure.
shouldn't even.
Yeah. There's that.
Yeah. Like.
And I think Plan B is available in Texas. I'm not sure.
That's not a bad thing.
No.
That's not the worst thing. I mean,
it's not the worst thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely an abortive medication, but
it's not the worst. You know, we don't need to be puritanical. Yeah,
100%,
it's not the worst.
not even close to the worst.
It's not worth like getting up in arms about.
I accept Plan B.
Yeah. It's not worth getting up in arms.
You got to take it within 72 hours of having sex. So I'm cool with that personally.
Yeah. I've in my day have had given a few Plan B pills too.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
it happens. Yeah, but like the reason
a few girlfriends my share of Plan, but
the reason I made that video is because leftists talk about ableism and they talk about eugenics, but you bring up abortion for reasons like that, for disabilities, and they lose their fucking minds.
Yeah, it seems a little ableist, right, to not want to.
Very. Yeah, it's like the most ableist thing I could possibly think of. It's like you're not even gonna let this disabled person try.
Even try.
And also, what is
the chance? Like, what are the chances of it being a wrong diagnosis?
Too? Yeah, I don't know.
Like, it could have just like imagine like you get that diagnosis and it turns out that the kid's fine.
Yeah.
But
that happens all the time with screens based on the mother's blood and ultrasound. That happens all the time.
I have a friend, Lila Hart, is a comedian who was born with like spina bifida.
Okay.
And like they knew that she was gonna have a bunch of genetic issues when she was born, and like her mom still chose to have the kid. But like, could you imagine like what if the mom just decided that they didn't want to have a kid with spina bifida, and then like, oh yep, that kid's not alive anymore. You know, that person's not alive anymore. Like, you know, so that
it happens all the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. That's kind of
and because these screens are so inaccurate, I would have to assume that
you don't
perfectly
even know
healthy babies are aborted all the time.
Yeah, you don't even know, right? And
all
that's kind of fucked up.
The time. Yeah.
You know what I think though? Like people, it's polarizing, and we only got a couple minutes right before we gotta go. I think that like the whole you see one side will say like abortion's healthcare, and then like the other side says like abortion's murder.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's either of those things, right? I think it's kind of like I think it should be looked at as like an absolute last resort after you've exhausted every single possible option.
In what case do you think that's an option? In what cases?
But let's talk about the possible options before we go into that. Okay. So option one, you find because there's a ton of families that are looking to adopt, right?
Yeah.
Option one, you find a family that
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Like finding like if you can find a family, if you can't find a family within like.
Adoption is a whole nother topic in America. The adoption industry here is so fucked up.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard to adopt an American baby.
Which that they should be doing reforms in that while in conjunction with this to actually win the narrative, right? But like I feel as though you should at least right now you should have to go through the you should have to try to find somebody that would be willing to
adopt. There's so many parents.
adopt your kid and cover all of your medical costs, and also pay for you while you recover from pay for your postpartum treatment and stuff like that. Like that's what I mean by last resorts. I think that there are avenues out there where if God forbid that does happen and you're not ready, there are a million people that do want to adopt, and there should be a better way to connect people, those people with each other. And I think that should be the focus, because if you're connected with someone that's willing to to pay for your childbirth, adopt your kid, and
Adoption
also cover the cost of your of whatever treatment and whatever care you need after your pregnancy. I don't understand why you would even want to go through that process. It wouldn't it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, adoption reform is a huge issue that no one even knows about, because our adoption in America is private businesses. It's a profitable business. It's insane, actually, the adoption industry here. And then the foster care system's a nightmare. So that's what the left
I think
likes
we should
to
have
use.
you back to talk about those issues at some
I'm
other time.
not super well versed in that, but it's a shit show. But I really think that starting from the education about women's cycles is what needs to happen.
Yeah, and encourage more Bitcoin adoption and stuff I'm actually not even kidding. Encourage more Bitcoin adoption, so that if you're protected from inflation and you have a better financial foundation, you're going to be more willing to want to have children. And
100%.
I mean, almost every Bitcoiner I know wants to have, is all about wanting to make more children. So
because they're
and eat meat, eat real food, and make babies.
They
that's
get
what you got
freedom.
to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
so do that.
Emily, how do we get a hold of you?
Okay, I'm on Instagram mostly. That's where you can
You
find
don't
me.
have Twitter?
No.
It's X now.
Yeah, I can't really do 2 social medias.
Instagram.
I try. I have 2 Instagram accounts. That's enough for me. But I'm at Emily Stanwyck on Instagram.
That's your Instagram.
Yep.
No YouTube. No Rumble.
No.
Nothing.
No.
No branching out.
I got a website, emilystanwyck.com.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Best doula in the game.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, if you're in Austin / New Braunfels or anywhere in between.
All right.
Holler.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. This was fun.
Thank you.